Behind another spectacular performance from superstar freshman Cooper Flagg, the fourth-ranked Duke Blue Devils improved to 14-2 over the weekend with an 86-78 win over Notre Dame at Cameron Indoor Stadium. I'm Mike Waddell. That's Dave Glenn. He's Coach Kerry Keating, and this is Timeout on the North Carolina Sports Network. And gentlemen, Duke has been the top team in the ACC going into this campaign. And now as we're at the midway point, this team just keeps getting better. And Cooper Flagg really found his stride. 42 points, an ACC freshman record, David Glenn. That's something that even in all of your experience in covering the Atlantic Coast Conference, you've never seen a freshman score that much.
That is true, Mike, and there's some other things I've never seen as well, including, I'm still researching this, but I can't find a player who led his team for an entire season in the five big categories of course, points and rebounds and assists and block shots and steals. Now, there's a long way to go for Cooper Flagg. But even as we can celebrate that Duke win over Notre Dame and Flagg's central role to it, 42 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, he was 11 for 14 from the field. So you can't say that he's just some high volume, low efficiency guy. 11 for 14 from the field and 16 for 17 from the free throw line, 4 out of 6 from three-point land where he has not been great. That is about as efficient and as productive as it gets in combination. But as we speak, and of course things can change, we're only at that midway point you just mentioned. But Cooper Flagg's absolutely going to lead the Devils in points. He's absolutely going to lead them in rebounds. He's almost certainly going to lead them in assists. That sounds strange because he's a 6'9" forward, but he's essentially a point forward, and he's well above all the Duke guards in terms of their total assists so far this season. The only things that he might get surpassed in are steals, where Malik Brown, who Coach Keating has described as one of the best defensive players in this league, and I agree. Malik Brown is at least close to Cooper Flagg in steals. The big fella, Kamen Malawach, is close to Cooper Flagg in blocked shots. So there's a chance one of those two categories kind of gets away from Flagg in terms of the full season. We'll have to count it all up at the end. But we're talking about once-in-a-generation type combination of skills and statistics here. Again, I'm still researching it, but I haven't found one in the history of the ACC that led his team in all 5 of those categories for the full season. Cooper Flagg might do it. Cooper Flagg is doing it as we speak. And Cooper Flagg obviously was the runaway MVP of an 86-78 win over Notre Dame, where I give the Fighting Irish a lot of credit because they're not the most talented team. They're not deep at all. But, man, did they put up a great fight in front of the Cameron Crazies. And it's a credit to Micah Shrewsbury and his starting lineup that a middling ACC team pushed the Blue Devils as far as they did. They just didn't have an answer to Cooper Flagg, and most teams won't.
They tried, from a coaching perspective, a lot of different avenues to go down and try to stop Cooper Flagg and the Devils. Change defenses. At one point, they were in a triangle and 2. They were talking about doubling him. They were going to play him straight up. I think from John Shire's standpoint, the thing you have to really be happy about is this is now the second game, the first being the Auburn game, where Cooper Flagg shot double-digit free throws. I think a really good indicator of a really talented player who doesn't press too much, especially a guy this young and this talented, is how many free throws he takes in big games. And this is obviously a big game from the standpoint that he put up 42, and the efficiency speaks for itself. But 16 for 17 from the free throw line. The 7 assists really stick out to me. When a guy puts up 42 in a collegiate game like that, and albeit did play 36 of the minutes, the fact that he could still garner 7 assists in those short rolls when he put himself in a position to be a playmaker and not just the play or the guy making the play really showed a lot of maturity. These last 2 months, the knocking has been, well, he can't shoot the 3 that well. Well, we all seen this happen before. All of a sudden, you get into these workouts in the spring, and they go into the NBA pre-combine and pre-draft, and the guy's like the greatest shooter ever, including guys that never even shot threes in the NBA in college. Like, all of a sudden, we can shoot threes because what does the NBA do now? Ad nauseum, jack up threes. They want everybody shooting threes, even the guys who can. For him to be able to make the most amount of threes he's made in a game this year and do it in a fashion where he didn't have to shoot 3 times as many, going 4 for 6 from 3, letting all of that come to him, just a model of an efficiency. And I tell you what, if you're the ACC right now and he's starting to get that efficiency going with that roster, and as David mentioned, still having a chance to lead in those 5 categories, whether or not he leads and steals or rebounds at the end of the season, because the volume may come to him with the ball in his hand, being the guy shooting or distributing, it really speaks volumes to what the NBA guys see in him. He mentioned about how he got back in the gym with his dad, and that's how he grew up, kind of that comfort zone of kind of shooting in the gym with his dad. Well, his dad's going to have to start living in Cameron Indoor Stadium here for him to keep shooting that way if they want that to continue. But I have a feeling this is a sign of things to come, and exactly what everybody said was going to happen with Cooper Flagg is now really starting to happen as the season ramps up into the second half. And that's pretty scary if you're an ACC team looking to grab a win later in the season. It may be that only quad one win chance you have. We already know how tough it is to win in Cameron. But if he can take that act on the road now and even not score 40, but if he can start to have this efficiency and still lead the team in assists, well, I tell you, it's going to be a long road for the ACC heading into March.
Duke is now 14-2 overall with the win over the Irish. A perfect 6-0 in ACC play. Guys, if you're an opposing coach, you have to be excited that Duke isn't just crushing everybody with overwhelming force at this point in the season, as they are undefeated. But if you're an opposing coach, what are you looking at as a potential weakness that you could exploit with this Duke Blue Devils team? What would you do, Kerry, if you were trying to put together a game plan against Duke?
Well, when you play against a guy as dynamic as Cooper Flagg, and obviously he can carry the team from a point standpoint, something that's easier said than done, but has to be attacked early on, is make him defend. Sometimes your best offense is your defense. Your best defense is your offense. You really have to try to put him into positions where he's got to defend your best player or possibly defend your best action to the point where he may not be able to get help from the rest of his teammates by way of a double team or a switch. As we're talking today, it looks like Malik Brown might actually be out with a knee injury that he sustained in that Notre Dame game. This may be a window right now. You have to take advantage of all and every opportunity that may come up by way of personnel available outside of Cooper Flagg that can protect him. Now, that's not to say that Duke needs 42 from Cooper to win all the time, but clearly he's going to be driving that train. You want to try to cut that head off if you can. I think one way to try to do it is take your best offensive output, try to put him in as many positions as he can to defend. And although you don't want to necessarily leave it into the hands of the referees, especially at Cameron Indoor Stadium where they live, you want to make sure that Cooper's put in a position where he's got to make some decisions on the defensive end, because freshmen inevitably and this may be a test to him, freshmen inevitably try to play that mental game. Well, I'll try to get it back playing offense, or I don't want to get into foul trouble. That's the real challenge, to see what level of maturity he has. I think it's one way you might see some teams, because there may not be any other way, really. They may not be as talented or as long or able to outscore them. You got to try to get him off the floor as much as he's on.
Yeah, Mike, one thing I would try to do is limit possessions. Notre Dame is very comfortable playing at a slower tempo, and I think that was one of the reasons that the Fighting Irish stayed in that game. But there aren't a lot of good answers is the bottom line. I mean, for example, when Carolina plays Duke twice later this season, Hubert Davis is not going to slow the tempo. That would just defer too far away from what the Tar Heels view as their identity. And Carolina is the fastest tempo team in the ACC. Duke is actually a mid-tempo team this year. So, usually the general theory is if you're that much of an underdog, you limit possessions, because it increases the percentage chance that you can overcome an opponent that is more talented than you, more efficient than you. But I don't know how many teams are going to be well equipped even to do what Notre Dame did, which in a defeat, I thought played incredibly, admirably well. And they lost by 8 and gave up those record numbers to Cooper Flagg. There are not, I don't believe Duke's going to go 20-0 or 19-1 in conference play. I'll put it this way. There's only once in the last 20 years that the ACC's first place finisher was 4 or more games ahead of the second place finisher. It's hard to create that large of a gap. Duke has a chance to create that large of a gap, whether it's, 18-2 and second place is 14-6 or something similar. We'll see. But I think Duke has a chance to put up those record type team numbers, just as Cooper Flagg is putting up those record individual numbers. Michael Berard, Managing Director Investments with the Founders Group at Stifel, works with a select group of high net worth individuals and institutions to develop and implement investment plans tailored to their specific objectives and risk tolerances. If you are interested in highly personalized, well-researched guidance and outstanding personal service, you can contact Michael at 984-364-2002. That's 984-364-2002. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.